Well, what better time for another episode than right now? Am I right? So it's going to be season 2, episode 4. It's going to be called "It's Better This Way," based off the aptly named album and song, which is a huge favorite of mine, called "It's Better This Way." Crazy, isn't it? By Big Crit. Big fan of the song. If you've never heard the song, I would highly recommend it. Will likely use it as my TikTok to promote this episode in particular. But it just, gets you. Actually, damn, I've got a lot of good thoughts on this. The more I think about it, we write no unscripted. I just kind of do my thing. I just do what I like to do. So this is how I do things. So one of the big things with this is, everybody goes through things in life. Everything goes through good times and bad times and runs the roller coaster of life. Like, I'm not the only person who goes through a roller coaster. I understand that. Like, I understand especially like that because my life is such a roller coaster a lot of times. And a lot of that has to do with my emotional, who the fuck knows? My emotional psychoticness, if you will. I don't, whatever. So we all end up in this roller coaster of things, and I myself go through. I don't want to say I go through more than someone else or less than someone else or nothing like that. Quite honestly, I go through what I go through because I go through what I go through. I don't know any other way to explain it or relate it to anybody else. Overall, I go through what I go through. I deal with it how I deal with it, and sometimes people try to tell me how I understand. Oh, you gotta understand. You gotta do it this way. You gotta do it that way. Listen, like I get it. In certain situations, I completely understand that, and like in scenarios where like like work projects and stuff like that. When someone's trying to teach you something, like a lot of times you gotta just. I know this is gonna be hard for me to really understand or process because I don't do it very well, which is just shut the fuck up and listen sometimes, which is not always my biggest strong suit. The shutting the fuck up part. I hear you all day. Just do I comprehend and do I stop talking long enough to hear it? That's the real question. But anyway, so, doing those things like taking the time to listen to learn and grow and understand. And that has to do with people, and that has to do with projects or things. Not everyone who is presenting ideas to you is being offensive, or not offensive necessarily, or aggressive, or trying to form how you're going to do things. But a lot of times too, they're just giving you a different perspective. They're not always, well, you have to do it this way. No, sometimes, but sometimes it is better that way. It's just the way it is. A personal example I can use, is, I work in construction, and, I don't know a lot, and I still, I learn, I have a lot to learn, but I know a good bit, but I also, there's a lot I don't know. But I'm constantly having to learn. And, sometimes someone's trying to come in there and like, hey, I need you to do, why don't you do this? Well, I've always done it this way. And unfortunately, a lot of times that is my response is, I've always done it this way. This is the only way I know how to do it. But they're literally presenting a new option, a new way that could be better. May not. And that's a lot of things you do in that give and take scenario, in growth, in learning, in trying to be better people or a better person or a better worker or a better husband, brother, sister, father, son, whatever. You're always learning to be better, but sometimes that's trial and error. Sometimes that's someone presenting you with a situation, and you learning to take all that information in and make an informed decision yourself. That, hey, I'm like, well, I've always done it this way, and that's great, except for the fact that now the way I'm learning how to do it is actually much better of a way to do it. So now instead of taking me 30 minutes to do it, now I can get it done in 25 minutes, which over time will consistently continue to get better because it's a much quicker way or a little easier way or a little faster way. And it's a way that I can manipulate better to better do the job quicker, more efficiently. But I'm just a stubborn prick sometimes. There's no joke about that. I mean, we understand. Sometimes that's how we are. But you know, in the ultimate scope of it all is we're all trying to be better, grow, learn. You know, again, relationships, friendships, familial relationship. You know, any type of ship that you can imagine you're getting into. A lot of times, you're always trying to be better, unless you're just a piece of shit, which is also possible. But that's not usually the case. So, as I was going through this episode and listening to the song for the probably 8 millionth time, I've honestly listened to it a bunch. It's been out for, it's probably been out for like 15 years at this point, which is crazy to see because, gosh, that's a long time ago. I think it was like 2016 though. Actually, I think it was like 8 years ago or so. But anyway, I was listening to this other song recently, and it kind of get me back to the core of a lot of things that I'm going through and working through, and the growth scenario. So when you come to a roadblock in life, whether that's losing a job or a relationship or a friendship or something shakes your core and throws you off balance in life. You've got to a lot of people say, well, I got to find my center. And right, finding your center is that's correct. That's kind of the way to do it. Now, for me, a lot of times I go back to music. I always tend to go toward music, hence why a majority of my episodes have always been about music in some way, shape, or form. And a lot of the titles come from a song, an inspiration that I got. Hence, it's better this way. So I was listening to this song. It's called "Till the End" by Caleb Gordon and Jay Monty, and in the album, and something that I've been going through and growing through is trying to find my peaceful place, a place where I can kind of where I'm settled, where I'm taking the time to kind of evaluate, whether it's just my day, my life. Again, my relationships, my situations with my daughter, situations at work, situations with my bills and all that stuff. Kind of just go to that peaceful place. Go to that place where I'm I don't want to say balanced, but in a way balanced, centered. Where I'm me, and I can take time to understand myself and relax and de-stress and just kind of find my path forward, find my better way. And in the song, he says, so like I said, "Till the End," Caleb Gordon, Jay Monty, phenomenal song. Absolutely love it. And it says at the very end of the song, it says, "I went back to the garden to find out who I am." And that kind of, in part of this journey that I've done over the last year, especially where it really started, and I'll explain that a little bit in a minute with a word called Ramos, that brought me right back to that moment again. And I was like, okay, well, that's crazy because last year when I was going through my little growth period, I got the Ramos album by John Keith, and that did a lot. It worked wonders for me as far as, identifying where I was at. And then the Hope album and then F came out, and that really just took me that next step. So John Keith's album showed me where I was, and F's album identified where I wanted to be. And then by the next setup with Benja's album, "Through the Hills," I believe that's what it's called. That was I know where I'm at, where I want to be, and this is the breakthrough. This is the ending, the breakthrough. That Benja album was the breakthrough for me. It was kind of the swan song, if you will, the celebration, the finish line. And obviously at the finish line, because growth is not linear. You're not going to end with growth. You're growing consistently, and it's pretty great. Well, over the course of this past year, things have not always been perfect or great, or I've had my ups and downs, and I've had in every aspect of my life, between, the financial, the mental, the relational, you name it, in every aspect of my life, there's been ups and downs, over the last year. So when I heard this, and it was like, I go back to the garden to find out who I am, I started thinking about it. My first thought when I heard it was Eramos. So Eramos is the term most loosely meant in the Greek to mean wilderness, which brings me to a whole nother subsection of the fact that when Jesus left for 40 days and 40 nights, he went to the wilderness to pray for 40 days and 40 nights to essentially recenter himself. So for me, when I'm reading this, you go back to the garden to find out who I am. I think of my Ramos, my wilderness, my, or as John Keith calls it, the lonely place. That's the place that you go to be alone, to, rediscover or re-examine or redefine or recharge or whatever yourself, something yourself to kind of find that breakthrough, to get through the lonely place to where you want to be, to the breakthrough. Like, that is literally what you want. You want to get that growth period. And I did that last year. Toward the end of the year, I had really kind of started to get myself back in that spot again. But unfortunately, due to circumstances, dealing with probably just my emotional state in general, that has, just been a roller coaster ride. And it's been, I have, a great month or a great couple of months, and then, then I go down again, and then I come back up again. And, and that's the general case that most people go through, is at least what it seems. Because, the amount of times I can tell you that I go on TikTok and Facebook and stuff like that, that I've really tried to, curb some of it, because there is so much, negativity on it, that ironically, as I, present all of this stuff on all of those platforms, but to curb some of that more, because it is such a toxic area at times. Social media is very toxic, and it can be very toxic. But so I say all of that to say, sometimes, those pitfalls or those situations or those breakups, job losses, I lost my car, accidents, things happen sometimes for a reason. Because sometimes you're getting off of the right path. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes a explosion of a situation sometimes to recorrect you or redirect you, if you will. And in this case, sometimes and it's just sometimes you have to just okay, you're going this way, and all of a sudden you're oh, hey, I'm back. I've got to come back. Now I've got to come back to this place. I've got to come back to the garden to find out who I am. Come back to the Eramos, the wilderness, the place where you can reestablish yourself again as who you are, and then, venture out again. Now, don't be afraid to venture out. This is not saying that, that those things, to, destroy yourself and just hold yourself back and reserve, I've withdrawn from people very heavily over the last, few months. I've not had the best couple of months. I've not been in the best of moods. I've not been in the best of people. Not been the best of my friends. I've not been the best of my coworkers. I've not been the best to family, whoever. Because I let myself get wrapped up in things too heavily sometimes, and I'll let that control my tempo. So part of withdrawing from social media a little bit, I've also withdrawn from people a little bit, and it's not just anybody. It's not no one specific. That is literally everyone. I've just pulled back, and it's not, hey, I don't want to talk to you. It's not, hey, I don't want to text this person or whatever, or nothing like that. It's not a specific person. It is people in general, social media in general. And I've been reading more often, and I've added books to my collection, and and things like that. I've done all those things where I have, I bought the TikTok overthinking book. Or whatever. Why? Because it's so highly touted, and I'm so curious, and I'm a massive overthinker. I will literally take any situation that you have, and if you can think of a worse, a bad scenario, if you were in my shoes, I promise you, I probably thought of worse. Why? Because that's just what I've always done So I'm taking steps to correct those situations. I'm taking steps to, learn from situations that have gone negatively and try to turn them into better ones, or just be a better person. Maybe just not be a piece of shit, which sometimes is kind of hard because sometimes being a piece of shit is just more fun. It's fucked up, I know, but it's kind of true. It's a little bit true. It's not quite true, but you know what I mean. So, I'm finding myself coming back to this place where I'm like, okay, come back to the lonely place, find some peace, going to church, reading my books. It's football season, so that has really been a massive distraction for me as well, as far as like kind of finding my peace, because it's one of my favorite parts of the year. It's football season. I love football season. So like it's not a distraction for me, but it's like it's just a place that I know I can go. I can always count on. I can always count on my Green Bay Packers to be around. They're going to be there, except for the bye week. And if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, they certainly aren't going to be there in January. So there's that. But like it's been a big part of it. So, being able to withdraw from people at times, again, to find out who I am. Man, listen to that song too. Till the End, Caleb Gordon, Jay Monty. Christian or not doesn't matter. It is a CHH song. It is an absolute it is a meaning filled song. It is spot on, and Jay Monty is a lyricist. Let me just tell you, be prepared, because that dude can write some lyrics. Jay Monty's a beast. Listen to the Ramos album. I've touted that before. This guy right here, Gotta Let It Go, Put It in God's Hands. John Keith. Love the dude. Got to tell him, some things about that album. I mean, that just impressed me. And it is a beautiful, beautiful place to be. And sometimes you have to find your Ramos. You can't, it's not, everybody's Ramos is different. Everybody's lonely place, everybody's wilderness, everybody's sacred area, everybody's little, Aaron Rodgers went to a darkness retreat. Fucking psychopath. I'm kidding, A-Rod. You're my hero still. You're not anymore. But, he went to his, on a darkness retreat. He went and found himself, or, did a bunch of ayahuasca, and I don't know. Who knows exactly what he did, to be honest. I don't think anybody really knows. But he did his thing. And actually, so here, this is a little thing from John Keith, from his Ramos. This was actually at the concert I went to, which was pretty cool. It says, turning to the New Testament, which is written in Greek, not Hebrew, the word most often translated as wilderness, Ramos, an isolated place. The wilderness figures at critical junctures in the life of Jesus. Jesus is baptized by John and then is driven by the Spirit into the wilderness for 40 days. The devil is there, but so is the Spirit. A great while before day, he rose and went out to a lonely place, and there he prayed. Mark 1:35. This records our search for solitude, for self-discovery, for divine presence. It literally, self-discovery. I think Lecrae said it in a song too, self-discovery, self-discover me. And that's it. And actually, I'm going to write that down too, because that's a good, I love that lyric. Self-discovery, self-discover me. That's literally what it is. And being able to get back to yourself again and kind of just evaluate situations for what they are. Is sometimes you realize that, not everything that you lose is a loss. Sometimes it's just a lesson. Good, bad, or indifferent. Sometimes it's just a lesson. Sometimes it's really a situation where it's not hey, I'm trying to break you down, or hey, I'm trying to beat you up, or hey, you don't deserve this, or you shouldn't have this. But sometimes hey, this isn't the one. It could be a redirection. Maybe the job you lost was because that job was toxic, or that boss was toxic, or you were going to fall yourself into some terrible scenario that you're going to get yourself trapped in. And so you're getting redirected and repurposed for a better mission in life. Maybe, the relationship you were in, when you lost that, you think it's the end of the world and your whole life is going to be different. Maybe that's not always the case. Maybe the case is that maybe there's somebody better, or maybe, there was things going on in there that you didn't know was happening. There was, I've heard scenarios of that before. I've had friends that have gone through stuff like that, where the conversations they're having with said boyfriend, girlfriend, are not the conversations that I've heard about said boyfriend, girlfriend. People saying, "Oh, I'm only with him for blah 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 money, blah 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 cars, blah 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 gifts, blah what they provide or whatever." But when they're together, it's like, "Oh my God, I love you, baby. You're so great. This is so wonderful. This is the best thing I've ever had." But they're talking to their girlfriends and or whatever, their boyfriends, and just be like, "Oh," or their guy friends or whatever. You know what I mean? And they're just like, "Oh yeah," you're like, "Oh no, this chick is so dumb. Like I'm just with her for because she's hot." And she's over here being like, "Oh yeah, like I'm only with him because he's got money and he spoils me and blah 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 blah." But you're not always a part of those conversations, so you don't always see them. So sometimes when that breakup happens, it happens for a reason because there's toxicity involved in that said relationship. I mean, it happens with families. I mean, how many times do you have you find out that sisters don't speak or brothers don't speak or brothers and sisters don't speak, or aunts and uncles don't speak with their nieces and nephews because of situations that happen. Like, I mean, there's situations that happen all the time sometimes, and sometimes those withdrawals or breakups or redirections are because there's bigger problems at hand, and that's better that way. It's a situation that requires redirection. So not every L is a loss. You're not always losing something when something goes away. Sometimes they're just lessons. Sometimes, and I've had this happen to me on multiple occasions where, I go into a situation like, this is what I've always wanted. And I get there and I'm like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this. Then it gets taken away from me. And I'm like, well, why? And it's heartbreaking and it is frustrating. And I understand that because I know my frustration when those things happen. So I definitely understand your frustration when those things happen because you're just like, well, why me? You immediately go from like, why did you give me that just to run it away? But you have to think, and I've seen a lot of this on TikTok lately too, but like sometimes you have to understand too, is who gave you those things that you've always wanted? Was it God or was it the devil? Because the devil sometimes is everything you've ever wanted. But there's an underlying bad, negative situation waiting there for you to destroy you. So sometimes when that thing is taken away from you, it's only taken away from you to protect you in a lot of situations. And that's not always the case. Like, not everything that's taken away from you is taken away from you for good. Sometimes you're not ready for it. Sometimes you're not prepared for the job. You don't have enough experience yet. You're not ready for that job. Like, you're just like, you'd have got in there and something would have happened and you would have lost that job. So your opportunity is now gone. And like that job that you always wanted is just stripped away from you, or the relationship or the friendship. Like some things, come in to teach you a lesson or to show you what you need to prepare for. Several relationships that I've ever been in have been, every single one of them has been different. Every one I've ever been in has been different, but every one of those has taught me something. I mean, again, I have a podcast from a year or so ago, and I probably did another one not that long ago, but I called 100% failure rate. And that is that 100% of the relationships I've been in, I've failed at because I'm not in any of them. So clearly it's a 100% failure rate, even up to now. A year later, nothing's changed. But it's true. But every one of them has taught me something different, because not all of them have been the same. A lot of things that happen in previous relationships, I would correct in the next one. But there would be something different that I missed, or something that I fall into the trap of thinking that by changing one little thing, that with the next one that everything's going to be better. Well, the next one's not the same person, for one. Two, that may not have been what they were looking for. So I corrected with that person, but they needed this direction, not that direction. So the thing I corrected, I love it. I appreciate it so much. It's so great. but they need this. And things like that are, little things, patience, and I'm not saying like gifts. I'm saying like learning people, understanding people. I don't understand people. Half the time I don't understand myself. But whatever. It just is what it is. But, I do understand myself. It's not entirely true because I do. I understand a lot about myself. But, you have to take those lessons and apply them to the next situation. And again, it's not that's a very fluid scenario too. It's a very be like water scenario based on the book that I'm reading. Be Water by Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter. Phenomenal book. Again, I will recommend stuff all day long. I can tell you things that work for me and help me, and I will absolutely pass that information on to you because if, like, for me, it's like, I'm like, damn, I needed that. Yes, absolutely, I want to share that with you. So, Be Water, my friend, Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter, 1000% recommend it. Life is fluid. So, in every situation, life is fluid. It's not always going to be the same thing. You can't always be rigid with a scenario. You can't be like, oh, well, this didn't work in this scenario, so I'm gonna change it and do it in this scenario. Well, in this scenario, that first option might have worked. Might have been exactly what you needed to do. But you have to learn and understand people, places, things, situations to understand that point. Those things, in order for you to understand those points, you have to understand that. You have to be able to understand that fact, that scenario. So you have to take time to learn and, to learn people, places, things. For example, so not every L is a loss. Some are just lessons. One of the things I love the most, and now I have my reservations and my own personal opinion on Stefon Diggs, but one of the things about Stefon Diggs that I really admired a couple of years ago when he was with the Bills, they had lost the AFC Championship game, and this happened 2 years in a row. They lost the AFC Championship game, and to the Chiefs. And both years, he stood out on the field during the AFC Championship presentation. And I always like when people do this thing. I think it's a good thing. Personally, I think it's a good thing that when a player does that stuff, to sit out there and watch. Like, you watch the team that just beat your fucking ass, and you're looking at them and just using that as motivation. Like you're in my spot. Like, that's where I should be right here. You're in my spot. So I'm going to watch you win this just to piss me off so that next year I'll come back here and fucking destroy you. Now, that did not work necessarily. And it can't necessarily work with one person in a team sport. It's a little different when, you're watching, when you're standing there second place, watching the first place person get the trophy again, and you're just like, oh, year in and year out and year out. Well, it's you versus them. In this case, it's a team sport, so it does require a little bit more effort from others. But Stefon Diggs doing that stuff, like he sat there and literally just like, listen, okay, what do I need to do? What can I do? How can I fuel myself, my team, to be in that position next year? Like, I want to be that team, getting the trophy, going to the Super Bowl. Let's do this damn thing. Like, I love that about it. Stefon Diggs is a very passionate person. Again, I have my reservations about Stefon Diggs and other scenarios that I'll leave off of this podcast and save that for my NFL podcast, which I do coming in hot. But that situation for me, spoke to the type of person that he is driven to want to do better. So you have to take some of those things and just always try to be better. Now, again, don't specifically do things in a relational area to be better in a relationship. Find the things that you need to change for you to be the person that you want to be, so that you can be that person, so that when a relationship comes around that fits, that where that person needs those things, who you are, then you can then be that person. But you're not being that person for the relationship. You're being you, and they're being them, and those things fit together. So don't always treat everything as negative. Be fluid, be willing to grow, be willing to learn and listen, and like I said, sometimes just shut the fuck up and take new perspectives and take constructive criticism, and don't don't take constructive criticism as that final word, because everybody latches on to criticism without hearing the constructive part. Hey, I'm trying to help you get better, not be a dick. It's pretty straightforward. But I have that problem too, and I understand that. So in the scenario where we're all trying to be better people, that sometimes it is better this way. Sometimes it is better to go through the breakup, to lose the job, to, for your car to break down, for this to happen, for that to happen, for the divorce to happen, for, sometimes these things are put here for you for a greater reason, which is very hard to see early on. Sometimes it'll take 40 years for you to figure out why that fucking little scenario happened 40 fucking years ago. And like, oh, this is the whole reason that this happened. But why did it take 40? Because sometimes it takes 40 years. I probably don't have 40 years left. I'm just being honest. 77? No, I don't know about that. We'll see. Shit. My daughter would be 44. That's crazy. Crazy. Little turkey, but anyway. All right, so I'm gonna finish this out with a question, which I think is interesting. You always hear people say, specifically and primarily people in relationships say this stuff like, oh, I wish I met you sooner. I wish I met you sooner. Like, oh, you're everything I've ever looked for. Like, I wish I met you sooner. But were you the person that you are now before? Like, previously? Because you probably weren't. I know I wouldn't have been, because I'm not. I'm probably not the same person I was yesterday. I mean, let's just be honest. But, like, people are always like, oh, I wish I met you sooner. But have you ever wished to meet someone later in life? Like, have you ever met somebody and been like, and think years later, you're like, damn, I wish I met them now. Like, not before. I wish I didn't meet you a year ago. I wish I met you right now. Because, like, and you may not talk to that person anymore. They may not be a part of your life in any way, shape, or form. Like, but you may think back to, your interactions with them, which may have been positive at the time. And at the time, things were good for, a period of time. But, you may be like, damn, like, I'm more prepared for, like, that person now. Or could better benefit them now. Or they could better benefit me now, Or mutually, like, it would be a better situation if we met now as opposed to, a year ago, like we did. I find that interesting. I don't know. I don't feel like I've ever had anybody ask that question to me. And maybe it's just in my head that I've never heard it, but I don't recall I've ever heard it. All I ever recall is anybody being like, they marry the love of their lives. Oh my God, I wish I met you, like, why couldn't I met you 10 years ago? But, like, have you ever thought back to somebody that you knew, a year ago or 6 months ago or 10 years ago and been like, damn, I wish I met that person. Like, I wish that person was here now. I wish that person that I met then got this version of me now. I asked that question. If you can, please answer in the comments. Like, honestly, I really, like, genuinely want to know what people think about that question. It kind of just drives me a little wild. Like, when I ask this question, do you think, is there someone that pops in your head that you're like, damn, I wish I met that person now in this stage of my life, in this time period. Like, this would be the perfect time to have met a person. Chew on it. Let me know. DM me. Send it in the comments. Go to my TikTok page, Facebook page, Instagram. I don't care. But tag me. I genuinely want to know if there's someone that you wish you met later. Was there a mistake? Was there a problem? Would that person have been better off beating you now? On that note, as always, just don't be a cunt. It's pretty straightforward. And we'll see you next time.